Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, everybody, and welcome in my part 3 of the Mikveh series. And today we're going to talk about from khazars to Bolshevism. Let me start the video off with a little clip of Noam Chomsky confirming their khazars.
Are you familiar with the khazar theory? There's a theory; it's widely accepted as anti-Semitic that Ashkenazi Jews come from the Khazars and they're not Levantine. But DNA tests.
It's not anti-Semitic. It's a question of fact. So Shlomo Sand, for example, has argued that, I think probably exaggerated, but it's simply a question of fact. If my ancestors from the Ukraine have Khazar roots, changes nothing.
So, let us establish that a majority of the Jews are from Khazar descent and from Dananite descent. So what happened to the tribe of Ashkenaz and the Khazars? Let us have a look. And I will be showing you here in a video a timeline of the Khazarian Empire. And basically the Khazars were a nomadic Turkish tribe from the line of Ashkenaz. They inhabited the mountains in the Caucasus area originally, and in that time they were a fearsome and merciless warlike horse tribe. And this empire sat in between Islam and Christianity, and through the Babylonian and the Dananite false Jewish priesthood, they converted to Babylonian Judaism. And I've been over this in my other videos in more detail, so check them out. And this whole empire was focused on the Babylonian Talmud. These Khazars, they were at war with many tribes, including the Bulgars, and they were eventually expulsed from history by the Cumans. Here, historians are questioning what really happened. I argue, and we have evidence, that these Jewish Khazars fled into Europe to their Jewish cousins, the Dananites, and here they started infiltrating the society. This is on base of their religion. Check my other video coming on the Talmud, and I will put some videos in the description. But at that time, the Cumans drove out the Khazars. They erased them from history around the year 1100, where they flee to Europe. Europe gets its first big Jewish communities and at the start of the Crusades, etc. A lot of things going on around that time, which I will go more in detail in my series Crescent and the Cross. This video will eventually reveal something very interesting and important in the modern day. So enjoy it. So the followers of the Babylonian Talmud are a satanic death cult, and they spread throughout Europe, where they set up their underground societies, which sprung up in Europe around the year 1100. About the same time the Khazars were erased from history. Alright, so what happened and where did they develop into? Well, we're gonna talk about that. They developed into the crime syndicates known to mankind in this day. Their whole religion is based on the fact that they need to conquer the whole planet, yeah, to bring back their Messiah. Their Messiah will not come back in their belief before they have achieved this goal of total domination, and then their Messiah will come back. Yeah, so this is a sick death cult that's focused on the destruction and death of everybody else except for themselves. But these Khazars, they morphed, yeah, into the Bolsheviks later. Look, these Jews, they were all over Europe. They got the money business in the hands. They were very good in doing shady deals. They weren't Christian at all. They didn't have any of these principles and morals. They could do a lot more shady things than the regular Christian could do in Europe. So they were essentially at first allowed to do a lot of the banking, do all of these things that a good Christian, yeah, wouldn't really want to do. So they took on all of these jobs. But of course, in Europe, we got the blood libels coming, yeah, where children go missing, where these priests found out these underground sects of Jews, where they do these rituals, where they sacrifice children and all of these kind of things. A'udhu billahi min shaitan regime. But it is really true. It's not an anti-Semitic trope. We just look in the history. It's reported too many times to just be some fantasy, alright? It really did happen. So, they got eventually expulsed from Europe the first time, but they didn't really get expulsed because they went underground. They created the Jesuit Society. They created the Templars. They created all these societies, the Freemasonry and everything. Because in that time, the Spanish Inquisition, etc., they were hunting for the Jews, and the Jews were not allowed anymore in Europe because of their crimes, because of the things they did and the things they found out about the Jews and their plans to infiltrate everywhere in high positions and take over governments. So they were expulsed, all right? They were taken in by Muslim countries. Majority went to, for example, to Morocco, the Spanish Jews, which, well, yeah, they are the other. This diaspora is actually the other bad guys because they're just as bad as the Khazars. They later also migrated together with the other genocidal maniacs we're going to talk about to the land of Palestine to genocide the Palestinians and take over their land and colonize the Holy Land essentially. But they have nothing to do with the line of David. They're not of the tribes of Judah and they're not of Israel. They actually never been there, probably. They migrated from everywhere to Europe, yeah. They ended up in places like Germany and Britain, etc. Because these countries back then they were Protestant and not Catholic. Because the Catholics they knew also how the Jews were, so the Jews weren't really liked by the Catholics. So all these Jews went to the Protestants because the Protestants they needed all the help they could get because they were essentially under siege by the Catholic superpowers of the time. So where these Protestants were, that's where the Jews were. The Jews were in the Netherlands, in Britain, in Germany, etc. And from here they migrated. They were some of the first to migrate to the new lands, America, North America, South America, etc. Because the Jews had free roam over there. So actually, most of the colonial settlers that went to America to settle America and to genocide over there were also Jews. They were all mostly Jews, criminals, the unwanted people, and Jews. So these Jewish Khazars and Dananites end up migrating to the US of A, end up being in the majority and infiltrating in high positions there. If you look at, for example, the founding fathers of the United States, Benjamin Franklin, and I can't even name them, but mostly all of them were Jewish. Essentially, all of them were Jewish. And this whole system of them, the Freemasonry, the how we go back to the maritime law of the Phoenicians, all of that comes from these Jewish migrants, these Khazarian Dananite Jewish migrants, and well, yeah, they end up owning half of the system. Nowadays, they own most of the system, but back then it was even worse. So they morphed into essentially the owners. And how did they do that? Because they create and orchestrate wars through their banking systems. If you don't know, now you know all wars are banker wars, and all bankers are Jews. And that's the real truth. If we go look, for example, the Napoleonic Wars, and this is an old world reset, and why would they reset and destroy all these things? I've been wondering that for so long. But it's very easy because they just want to enslave everybody and destroy the planet. So their whole idea is to break the racial pride, etc., national pride, ideologies, and identities of the people. Then it's easier to bring them on their knees and to enslave them. You see, they've enslaved so many people. Look at what they've done with the Schofield Bible, etc. So we must stop talking about National Socialists and we need to start talking about Bolsheviks and Jews and their crimes. Just look at the Holodomor. But all right, I'll let you know, watch a short video to explain how communism is, in fact, Jewish.
In Russia, we used the doctrine of our dear departed elder of Zion, Karl Marx, to divide the Russian people against themselves and get the power into our own hands, where it remains to this day. We butchered their Tsar and his whole family like the Gentile cattle they were. With the help of the common people, we slaughtered all of the Russian aristocrats and took their wealth. And then we turned on the common people. First, we murdered their leaders, their writers and teachers and intellectuals and military officers, so that there would be no one able to turn the people against us. And then we began murdering the common people themselves, the farmers and workers, first by the millions and then by the tens of millions in labor camps and death camps all across Russia. And most of them never did understand what was happening to them. One of them, who had been studying to become a Christian priest, we corrupted and made into our ally. His name was Stalin. Later, like the Pharaoh who knew not Joseph, Stalin tried to turn against us. But one of our women was his doctor, and we poisoned him before he could harm us. When the system based on the theory of our departed elder, Marx, had bled the Russian people dry, we launched a privatization scheme which put most of the remaining wealth directly into our hands. America, however, is the prize example of our success. Just as in England and in Russia, also in America, we have been able to put a totally corrupt Gentile politician into the position of nominal power and then to surround him with our own people who wield the real power. Actually running the American government, our people are in charge of America's State Department, America's Defense Department, America's Federal Reserve System, and America's Treasury Department. We have gained a nearly complete control of America's educational system, from kindergarten through the universities. No ideas or facts may be taught unless we have given them the stamp of political correctness. We have made it impossible for anyone in an American university to contradict anything we have claimed, no matter how preposterous, about what happened to us during the Second World War. We now have the American government, just like every government in Europe, paying us reparations because not enough was done for us during the war. We have succeeded in corrupting America's read the depraved and trashy novels we tell them to read and believe that these novels are literature. Our success in America has been due to two things: our control of the mass media of news and entertainment, through which we control the ideas and attitudes of the masses, and the system of mass democracy, which ensures that the votes of the masses under our control determine which figurehead politicians actually make up the American government. Since the last part of the 19th century, we have been gathering the power of the mass media into our own hands. In those days, many of us were only rag pickers and dealers in used merchandise, recently off the boat from Russia or Poland. But whenever a Gentile newspaper got itself into financial difficulties, we were ready instantly to pool our resources and buy it out, so that henceforth it could be in the hands of one of our people. In the 1920s, when radio was becoming a powerful medium of persuasion, we began buying broadcasting stations and putting together networks. At the same time, we saw the potential for motion pictures and began moving into Hollywood. By working together with each other, we were able to bankrupt or buy out every Gentile film producer except Walt Disney. We had to wait until he died to take control of his film company, but by then we already dominated the entire motion picture industry. After the Second World War, when television became the most powerful medium of mass persuasion, we were ready to move in and dominate the TV industry from the beginning. Today, no motion picture can be made and no television program can be broadcast in America without our approval. The couch potatoes will not object. By that time, we also should have achieved our goal for the disarmament of the American population. And then, my fellow elders of Zion, we can do to the American people what we did to the Russian people. With our power of television, we will have them voting for their own slaughter. Long live our mass media. Long live democracy. Long live the power of triumphant Zion.
The term racism is an active noun first put to literary use in 1930 by Leon Trotsky in his book The History of the Russian Revolution. Born Lev Davidovich Bronstein, he grew up as a Jew in Little Russia, or the Ukraine, in the late 19th century. Like many professional left-wing agitators and revolutionaries with Jewish backgrounds, he created a more native-sounding name to better dupe locals in the nations they actively sought to destroy. Trotsky was a key agent in Russia who co-wrote the first set of law codes in the newly formed Soviet Union. The fourth of these, issued in 1922, made anti-Semitism treasonous to the political Soviet of Russia and was punishable by death. In fact, this law had become necessary, as many Russians, Balts, and Ukrainians in particular began noticing that the vast majority of commissars entering their villages, bringing gangs of thugs and meting out harsh collective punishments, were of Jewish origin, and some 150 were beaten to death as a result in 1921 alone. However that may be, the history of the terms racist and racism, created by the communist and proto-globalist Leon Trotsky, who personally asked the New York Times to label him an internationalist, these terms have thus been stamped with anti-European, anti-Western male vitriol to such an extent that they can be considered as merely social constructs, which have meaning only to those seeking the eradication of Western culture, as the sole target of these terms is consistently applied to ethnic Europeans.
Some victims in Kiev were placed in a coffin with a decomposing body and buried alive, only to be dug up after half an hour. Lenin was still not satisfied with this and reported, "More power to the terror." The Bolsheviks would eliminate every free thinker. Trotsky wanted every individual to be a rootless soldier of labor, and he thought that all those demanding free speech, free press, and free trade unions should be shot like dogs. If ordered to move, they were forced to obey. If they refused, they were deserters who would be punished with death. Every move was at gunpoint. Trotsky often executed his victims personally in the most cruelest ways. He happily ordered disciplinary executions, and he even ordered children murdered. Officers and their families were executed for disobeying orders. The Jew Grigory Zinoviev, real name Hirsch Apfelbaum, as head of the Communist International, wrote in an article in the Draznaya Gazeta in Moscow, September 1st, 1918, "We will make our hearts cruel, hard, and immovable, so that no mercy will enter them, so that they will not quiver at the sight of a sea of enemy blood. We will let loose the floodgates of that sea. Without mercy, without sparing, we will kill our enemies in scores of hundreds. Let them be thousands. Let them drown themselves in their own blood. Let there be floods of blood of the bourgeoisie. More blood, as much as possible." Every people who dared to criticize the regime would be branded as anti-Semitic and punished with death. Christians, priests, and the most attractive youth, and all non-Jewish intellectuals were the first to be exterminated. In years to come, Stalin's crime against humanity would make Lenin's Red Terror crumble in comparison.
These are heavy images and it's a heavy history. I just want to add, I'm not glorifying any kind of violence. I condemn all kinds of violence if they're not in self-defense. And I want to show you as well the beautiful side. So before we had the Bolshevik Jewish Revolution, we had a beautiful society all over the world actually. There has been a couple of wars that changed that. But before the Bolshevik Revolution, you had Prussia and Russia. Now, if you look at the name Prussia, which is Germany, if you take away the P, you get the name Russia. Yeah, and then you put the Tsar and the Kaiser next to each other, which were twins, and just look at their fabulous costumes, the fabulous world that was then, the fabulous music being made, the fabulous architecture, the art. We don't have that nowadays. They were much more evolved. But then came the Bolshevik revolution, and these people killed all the intelligent people. They left alive only the idiots, and they even admitted themselves. Just look at it. Watch.
למה באמת היטלר רע נגד היהודים? מה הוא רצה מהם? מה הפריעו לו? אבל הדברים כתובים כאן במיינקאמפ. זה הספר יצא רק לאחרונה, התירו לתרגם מיינקאמפ בעברית, זה היה אסור כל השנים. אבל יש לי תרגום קודם יותר שיד ושם תרגם קטעים, להם היה מותר. היטלר טוען בספר שלו שהיהודים הם קומוניסטים. הם עשו את המהפכה ברוסיה. הם הרגו שם 30 מיליון רוסים, את כל האינטליגנציה, בצורה אכזרית ונוראה. ואת זה הם רוצים לעשות לכל העולם. הארץ הבאה בתור זה גרמניה. הם הקימו את המפלגה הקומוניסטית והסוציאליסטית הגרמנית, וזה נכון. אם אנחנו לא נתגבר עליהם עכשיו, הם יחסלו אותנו וישחטו גם כאן 20 מיליון איש את כל האינטליגנציה. וככה הם הלכו מארץ לארץ.
So it's not just my theory. Scholars admit it, Jewish scholars admit it. It's actually the history, it's open knowledge, but you're not allowed to research it, you're not allowed to question it. Actual historians have gone to jail for this, but it is essential that everybody understands. Because how can we say never again if the whole never again is wrong? And how can we still blame victims of genocide for the crimes? It's the same as what's happening nowadays, yeah? These people, these Jews, are committing genocide, and they're blaming the people they're committing genocide on, and they're saying these people are human animals. Yeah, they're terrorists and they're Satanists, they're the worst people on the planet. Just look at the facts, people. Look at the modern day, go back into history, and trust me, it's the truth. So I'm gonna leave you with a last piece of a video to explain how these Jewish soldiers in the Soviet army went into Germany to commit the most horrible and the most vile crimes against the German people. And I will leave all kinds of things in the description again, and I think I need to leave my revelation for the next video, so stay tuned for Mikveh 4.
There were many different motives for why the First World War was fought. Since 1871, Germany had emerged as a powerhouse, upsetting the long-established balance of power scheme in Europe. The established great powers, Britain, France, and Russia, joined together in 1914 to destroy this new rival. On the 28th of June 1914, Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb and a failed student, assassinated the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, successor to the Austria-Hungarian throne. Austria-Hungary had signed a defensive pact with Germany, which Germany in 1909 reconfirmed by declaring that Germany was bound to stand by Austria-Hungary even if it had started a war. Austria declared war on Serbia, which started the First World War. Throughout the whole war, Germany wanted peace and had nothing to gain in the conflict whatsoever. Even if Germany was well on its way to win the war in December of 1916, Kaiser Wilhelm offered to negotiate peace with the Entente powers. By December 1916, Germany had a clear advantage. France had suffered horrible losses. Russia faced internal Bolshevik uprising and revolutionary chaos and had to withdraw its troops. Britain was under the U-boat blockade and not 1 inch of Germany had been occupied. Germany still offered generous peace terms. Kaiser Wilhelm was ready to just call off the war and return to how things were before. That was when the Zionist Jews, Chaim Weizmann and Nathan Sokolov, approached the British with a dirty deal. They offered to use their global influence to bring the US into the war on Britain's side, while undermining and destroying Germany from within. In exchange for US entry, the British would steal Palestine from Ottoman Turkey, which was Germany's ally, and then allow the Jews to settle there. The deal was called the Balfour Declaration and was delivered to the Baron Walter Rothschild. Jews in London then sent messages to Louis Brandeis, one of the Jewish members of the Supreme Court, instructing him to pressure President Wilson to join the war. Other Zionist power brokers such as Bernard Baruch, Paul Warburg, and Jacob Schiff also pressured America to join. The British government agreed that they would support a Jewish homeland in Palestine in exchange for the powerful Jewish lobby in America getting the USA to join the Allies. British airplanes dropped leaflets over Germany printed in Yiddish. The Balfour leaflets to win Jewish support in Germany by promising the Jews a homeland in Palestine after they had won the war.
And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people. If you think it took 3,000 years to get to this. And then you say, how did this miracle happen? It's the most incredible piece of opportunism. I mean, if you think you had an impoverished would-be scientist, Chaim Weizmann, who somehow gets to England, meets a few people, including members of my family, seduces them. He has such great charm and conviction. He gets to Balfour, and he unbelievably persuades Balfour and Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, and most of the ministers, that this idea of the national home for Jews should be allowed to take place.
After the deal was made, Jewish-owned media immediately unleashed a ton of anti-German propaganda, depicting the Germans as barbaric Huns. This was done to get the public support for American intervention in the war, while the Zionists and Jewish Marxists of Germany started to destabilize Germany from within through several strikes within the arms industry factories, which weakened the German war effort. If America wouldn't have been tricked into the war, it would have been stopped right there and then, and millions of European lives would have been saved. American entrance into the war was then carried out as promised. Lord Balfour was assuring the Zionists that Britain would fulfill its end of the deal after the war had ended, the theft and overthrowing of Palestine from the Ottoman Turks. Before more European blood would be shed on European soil, both Germany and Austria-Hungary again asked for a peaceful resolution. Wilson was forced to admit that Germany and Austria-Hungary had indeed expressed general peace proposals, but he casually dismissed them all. Lying about how beautiful the post-war peace was going to be like, Wilson managed to trick so many war-weary Germans into an unconditional surrender and disarmament in November of that same year, 1918. Communists and Zionists within Germany stabbed their countrymen in the back. Marxist trade union leaders ordered factory strikes which deprived German troops of their vital supplies. German morale and industrial output quickly fell. Germany laid down the weapons and wished for an honorary peace. After the war, the treacherous betrayal of 1918 became known as the stab in the back. Germany had simply been betrayed from within by Zionists and Communists, and consequently they were all tied together as enemies because they wished to see Germany fail. In Israel today, Balfour Day, November the 2nd, is widely celebrated. The Palestinian Arabs observe it as a day of grief. In January 1919, the victors met at the Paris Peace Conference to financially crush Germany and determine the new borders of the defeated nation. Germany was not even invited and would not have any say in the final decisions, as the globalists ripped Germany to pieces. The conference also created the basis for a future world government, the League of Nations. The Zionist delegation that was present, that had brought America into the war, also made sure that former Arab territories of the Ottoman Empire were separated from Turkish rule and broken up into small states so that Palestine could become a British protectorate. The Jews then claimed to a peace of Palestine guaranteed by the League of Nations, exactly as Herzl had predicted in 1887. Out of the Paris Peace Conference came the brutal and notorious Treaty of Versailles on 20th of June 1919 and the Treaty of Saint-Germain on 20th of September the same year. Even liberal historians recognize the evil of the treaty today. A Germany that did not want any war, that had tried to avoid war, and had offered to make peace on numerous occasions throughout the whole war was now totally disarmed. Germany was forced to pay massive war reparations in the form of money and natural resources. The crushing debt payments, 100 billion marks, equal to $1 trillion in modern currency, devastated the German economy and soon caused a hyperinflationary monetary collapse. The total sum of war reparations demanded from Germany were about 226 billion marks. The aim was to financially break Germany. John Maynard Keynes predicted that these harsh reparations would lead to the financial collapse of Germany. Germany's armed forces were restricted to 100,000 men, intended solely for police duties within the country, and conscription was prohibited. All German colonies were taken away from her. The same thing happened with a number of German areas in Europe. In total, Germany had to give up 13% of her lands. Several million Germans ended up stranded outside of the German Empire, and millions were forcefully expelled from their homes. Germany also lost large parts of their industry when key iron ore and coal assets disappeared. The industrial German Rhineland would be occupied by French troops for 15 years. The Treaty of Versailles was a devastating peace treaty for Germany. But the agreement also had serious economic consequences not only for Germany, but also for Europe and the world, as Germany was such an important brick in the world economy. The treaty contained 440 clauses. 414 out of them were specifically dedicated to punishing Germany for a war that the nation was totally innocent of. In the Times 1919, Winston Churchill expressed the ultimate goal of the treaty. Should Germany do business again in the next 50 years, we have led this war in vain.
So this video is going to be a little bit too long, so I'm gonna leave you for the conclusion. In the next video, we're gonna look at how these Khazars, how they actually destroyed Germany and completely genocided the place. Actually one of the greatest crimes, maybe the greatest crime ever committed in human history, together with the communist crimes within Russia, where they killed over 60 million Russians, and the communist crimes in China by Mao Zedong, of course, not to forget, with millions and millions of people being victim there. So yes, we need to stop these crimes. We need to stop the Jews. We need to stop the Marxist, Bolshevik, communists. We need to make Earth great again. Free Palestine, free the world, peace.